fourth effect. The fourth and most important effect appeared much later than the three others around 2017. That was on the day the problems which remained in the acoustic of the room got completely solved, that this new phenomenon occurred. In former years, I felt the effects of the Extasium just by sitting quietly and silently for about 10 minutes, right after listening to the piece of music. Then, because of the intensity of these effects, it occurred to me to lie down in my room next door. That's when I discovered the power of the lying down connection. Until now, it was mainly the visual aspect, as in the kaleidoscope, with its strange dream maker music, that triggers these intense feelings of well-being. However, having to be equipped with hearing aids only for music, I found that managing to adjust their response curve, mainly for the treble, the effects became more and more intense. It took me about 60 visits at the specialist to complete a decibel by decibel adjustment that roughly took nearly 7 months. In comparison, patients generally do not hear the difference underneath 3 decibels. With each progress, the intensity of the effect gradually increased, proving that the quality of the sound, so subtle and so realistic, that I successfully developed with the acoustic of the Extasium and the sound system, Mr. I and Lady O, was crucial. Moreover, with new neighbors above my apartment, I could no longer listen properly to the music of Dreammaker, too noisy because uncompressed. I used other tunes like Baroque music and other classical music. The higher the musical theme, as in some opera, oratorio, or requiem, sacred music, the greater the effect. I found that voices produced more effects, especially the chorus and female voices. One of them causes striking effects, Maria Callas' voice. When I enter the Extasium, simply lit by an indirect moonlight, for a session, I already step in another world. I soak up this universe. I look at the painting for a moment. I remind that it represents the door in the sky from the book of Revelation. Then, after having selected 10 minutes pieces, and often much less, as the action is fast, I suddenly turn off the light and dive into the dark while putting the music on. The effect is almost immediate as I hear the first notes. I feel a stream of energy that runs through my whole body, manning the spine. It's very strong and very pleasurable. It is the summum of the happiness that can be felt on earth, and the more I get used to it, the more it increases. Reading the description of this extraordinary phenomena, fully described in my book The Secret of the Apocalypse Extasium, you probably want to realize the intensity of the effects produced by this amazing body of art. That's why I filmed myself during a lying down connection session and commented on everything that was happening. Note that this position is unusual when one wants to reach higher planes of consciousness, but it is much more comfortable and efficient. All movements and sounds emitted occur spontaneously. Be careful. The intensity felt is so strong that it can give the impression of me suffering. But it is not. It's just happiness and love at a very high level. Effect produced by Extasium. Immersed into the dark, I have just listened to 7 and 8 minutes of Baroque music, during which I have already felt the streams of energy to travel the body. Then, after a few minutes in an ecstatic silence, I got up, went in my bedroom, and started up the camera. I lengthened, and very fast streams of pure enjoyment filled my head, then moved along the spinal column up to my feet by urging me to move. Fun movements comparable to the sexual act, but much better, stronger, and more sustainable. Hills become a new source of energy which rises along legs, lingers one moment in the belly as a sphere of very pleasant, irradiant heat. The process happens several times, alternating with still moments where the intensity felt is even stronger. I insist on the fact that it is the exceptional sound quality of the Extasium, coupled with the draw of the ecstasy, which induce these amazing sensations. In the beginning, when the sound flew in was very realistic, I remained sad for about 10 minutes in Extasium, feeling these waves of pure happiness. Then, as I managed to delay the effects bothering as a hardness in the sound, the effects increased in power what led me to go in my bedroom. The more the image and the sound were achieved, the more the effects were intense and sustainable. After a few minutes of connection, by the beginning of these effects, we spent at least 1 hour and more often 90 minutes of happiness, absolute enjoyment beyond all that we can imagine. A long-lasting well-being from which we come back relaxed and perfectly serene in complete plenitude. I specify that the image of the picture is the result of a first discovery of a particular relation between music, the paint, the light, and the electronics, which revealed the forms and the colors of this exceptional structure. But the implementation of these elements was able to come true only by another discovery, the one that a very important, very old, very mysterious, and very badly understood book, the Book of Revelation, contained the basic plan hidden amongst its scriptures of this machinery getting these extraordinary benefactions. However, it was coded, but it became possible to decipher it when I realized that this particular relation was the deciphering key. During the connections, I was able to analyze to a certain extent what takes place. The subtleties of the effective sound of the extasium goes on for a long time in the silence that follows the listening. We'll realize it only if we listen in the deepest darkness, eyes shut, and in the silence. The effect occurs with any kind of music, but most importantly, occurs with Dream Maker. These songs are induced by the contemplation of the picture, lit by diverse manners in the silence, with a soft and colored light. The addition of this sound with the vision of the unique picture, a kind of mandala, produces a very fine and perceptible message of the cranial box. This action triggers the excitement of a particular zone in the middle of the brain, the center of the pleasure. Blindly lengthened in the darkness, we envision an internal perception. It's as if our gazing function would be located in the back of the skull, as if we were watching from the inside. We perceive something as if the illumination of the neurons were forming a sphere. The sphere is being transformed during the sessions, which takes place in several phases during roughly 20 minutes each. The brief moment between each session allows the participant to moisten his mouth and to look at his watch because we lose the notion of time. In the first phase, the sphere is uniform and some thoughts of the immediate everyday life erupt until the creation and the promotion of the project Extasium reaches a truly insightful accuracy, which is hard to remember. The action to put in memory the creative thoughts arising at this moment make calm down again at a daily level and makes more difficult the restart. For one better result, it is necessary to let go itself and more to make no effort, so small it is. That is why the lying position on a comfortable mattress is better because the body has no efforts to make. All the stressful thoughts have disappeared and only appear no more in a complete remote way. The movements arise as a kind of trance in which we keep all of our lucidity. At first, impossible head movement from left to right that are slowly increasing by degrees. Their role is to stabilize the central sphere, which is becoming clearer, stopping any parasite thoughts to let the stream of fun energy flow in the whole body. Then the spinal column starts waving laterally from left to right, truly amplifying the effects. Then the movements from top to bottom have to linger in the spinal column in the sensitive places. They generate or amplify these extraordinary pleasures. Sounds, not always there, emitted at these moments, occur unwillingly and still amplify the felt effects. These movements initiate a period of immobility during which the sensations are even more intense. Then the waves or internal caresses leave the feet, and the heels become new centers of energy, going up and down the thighs up to the head, with a station in the stomach forming like an internal fire. But an intense and very soft bluish fire which does not burn and produce a deep well-being. All this comes along with strong, very pleasant sensation. In a second time, during 20 minutes, but sometimes for a longer period of time, we begin to perceive geometrical shapes in the center of the sphere of energy. It is often the same vision that appears. A very sterilized eye, an upward and equilateral or isosceles triangles, and many other shapes. But especially, and most frequently, a square on the point as a vertical rhombus, which is transformed into a diamond molecule. The diagonal lines of the diamonds are then turned into a central crust and other transformations that are actually hard to memorize. In this phase, we pass more and more time of non-thinking. In the third period of time, and sometimes beyond, we are almost immersed all of the time into non-thinking, a pleasant beatitude, and extreme enjoyment. The shapes are almost gone, and we perceive only a fuzzy circular shape followed by a sound that fills the brain. This sound is similar to a light, continuous, and very soft, gentle hiss that is intensified as we enter into another dimension. This non-thinking moment is the ecstasy in which we are pure consciousness, pure perception of the self, pure sensation of enjoyment, pure well-being, and we are still perfectly lucid. After every presentation of the picture, animated live with the music, we noted that hundreds of watchers who had experimented it over the years had felt some strong effect, like an ecstasy. That is why the room was named the Extasium. There are numerous levels of ecstasy that we can reach. According to the sensibility of each person, we can reach them more or less quickly and easily. We only realize the level that we have reached, that seems always high and intense, only by coming down again. The easiest and fastest way that I've reached all the users with variable intensity, depending on the individuals, is by viewing the kaleidoscope, the picture cinema, issued from the Extasium on the songs of Dream Maker. The effects as such as we were able to speak about intensive relaxation. But for better results, it is necessary to listen to it with a quality sound system, or for much better results with the best possible audio headphone too near to the sound of the Extasium at its base. The ideal for the most intense ecstasy is to look at the kaleidoscope in Extasium, for both its sound quality and in visual aspect, which is not feasible for all at the moment. And when we feel ready, we listen to some music plunge into the dark that considerably amplifies this sensation. Being in the Extasium, which is an acoustic space, gives you the impression of traveling in a kind of spaceship, a flying carpet at the same time, in a fairy tale of a Greek temple, which carries you immediately in an infinite universe of timeless serenity and wipes away the concerns of everyday's life. We reach, step by step, progressive intense ecstasies, but rather quickly if we are sensitive and open, and what we let ourselves go. We can review the same videos, which are always active several times, as they are rich of universal detail which we can hardly memorize. The most frequent comment after a session, there is no word. Several times, viewers told that in the week which followed the session, they felt a beneficial change without being able to define it and felt protected. After the session, we want to go out, have dinner, see a movie, etc., with an expanded acuteness and a body still pleasantly vibrant sometimes. There should be more to be said on the effects of the Extasium, but the difficulty of storing them in memories compels you to experiment it by yourself. The definition of this video is bad because it has been filmed with very little light, and it only has to be considered as document. This session lasted about 22 minutes in the obscurity. Then I got up, I stopped the camera, closed the curtains to fully dive into the dark, and went back to rest for the last phase of this connection, which has lasted more than 1 hour of very big ecstatic intensity and no other movement. To have an Extasium which induces extraordinary sensations so intense and beneficial at home is the ultimate luxury that there is. Since this video was shot, 2 years have passed, during which the effects have amplified, becoming even more intense and fast to occur to the point that I felt I was making love or living love with divine energy, pure happiness. I recall that all my research and my creation, which caused these positive effects, are based on the deciphering and analysis of the book of Revelation, the last chapter of the Bible. We are talking about the revelation written by John the Revelator, forgetting to tell us in the preamble that it was an angel who communicated it to him, who spoke on behalf of Jesus, himself spokesman of God. I only realized it recently, which led me to realize that this body of art, so genuinely extraordinary as the Extasium, is the gift from God, to whom I did not previously think, and that it is destined for the whole mankind. I acquired the proof of his existence by feeling and contemplating him every day in his many aspects, in addition to the revelations that have been transmitted to me. American and Israeli researchers have thus discovered through specially designed software that there are keywords predicting the future in the Hebrew text of the Torah at the beginning of the Bible. One description seems relevant when it comes to the Extasium, which would have been announced more than 2,500 years ago. Einstein said that if God exists, he must be geometry. This is what I discovered. Thus, the Extasium is an animated tabernacle, place or person inhabited by the divine presence.